It began with silence. A quiet release from an observatory in China that no one expected, no one was ready for, and no one could explain. In a small, sterile lab outside Beijing, a team of astronomers gathered around a glowing monitor. The room was dim, filled with the hum of computers and the faint buzz of electricity. On the screen, 4 frames appeared, captured by China's newest deep space telescope array. They weren't just photographs. They were revelations. The object they had imaged was not a star, not a comet, and not a fragment of rock drifting through space. It was 3I/Atlas, the mysterious interstellar visitor that had entered our solar system months before. A cosmic vagabond from beyond the sun's reach. And these new images changed everything. Because for the first time in history, humanity was seeing it up close, and what they saw shouldn't have existed. At first, the scientists thought the data was corrupted. The object didn't look like a comet at all. There were no dusty tails, no frozen gases, no random shape. Instead, 3I/Atlas looked deliberate, angular, symmetrical. Its surface gleamed with reflections that couldn't be explained by ice or metal. It wasn't spinning chaotically, like natural objects do. It was rotating, evenly, precisely, like a craft holding its balance against the windless dark. When the head of the observatory saw the data, he reportedly whispered, "This is not what we thought it was." Those words would set the scientific world on fire. 3I/Atlas had already been famous long before these new images surfaced. When it was first detected, the world assumed it was just another interstellar traveler, a visitor like Oumuamua or Borisov, those fleeting messengers from other star systems. But there was something about 3I/Atlas that made astronomers uneasy. Its speed, its brightness, and the strange way it defied the models of orbital physics. It came from no known direction of stellar origin. It drifted on a path that seemed to curve without any gravitational reason. Still, no one wanted to say it. No one wanted to suggest the impossible. Until now. Because the Chinese photos, crisp, vivid, undeniable, showed patterns across the object's surface. Parallel ridges, grid-like structures, a faint lattice running along its outer shell, like a design carved by intelligence. It was beautiful and terrifying. When the images leaked online, the world erupted. China's observatory servers crashed under the surge of downloads. The photos spread like wildfire across every forum, every newsroom, every university inbox. But inside NASA, the reaction was not excitement, it was panic. Within hours, senior officials convened an emergency meeting. Every department that had ever tracked 3I/Atlas was ordered to re-examine its data. Every scientist who had commented publicly was told to remain silent. And then, quietly, the director of NASA's Deep Space Observation Program resigned. No explanation, no statement, just gone. By the next morning, a replacement had been announced, someone whose background wasn't in astronomy, but in defense intelligence. The message was clear. Whatever 3I/Atlas was, it was no longer just a scientific concern. Across the Pacific, Chinese officials held their own press conference. Their language was cautious, controlled, almost rehearsed. They didn't say what the object was. They didn't say what they believed. But they said something that made the world shiver. This discovery confirms anomalies that suggest non-natural formation. Non-natural, a phrase that means only one thing. It's not a rock. It's not a comet. It's something else. Something built. For decades, scientists have asked the same question. If the universe is filled with trillions of stars and planets, where is everyone? Maybe now we know. Because when the new images were analyzed under deep spectrum filters, they revealed something even stranger. The object wasn't cold like a comet. It was warm. Not blazing like a planet, not radiant like a star, but emitting a steady, controlled temperature, as though it were generating power. And along one edge of the object, faint glows appeared in a repeating sequence. 3 flashes, a pause, 3 flashes again. It was almost Morse code, almost intentional. NASA's radio telescopes were immediately trained on that region of the sky. And what they found left them speechless. A signal, faint, repetitive, perfectly timed. At exactly 1420 megahertz. The hydrogen line, the universal calling card of communication. The same frequency SETI has used for decades, hoping someone out there might one day use it to say hello. Now something had. The pulses lasted only a few seconds each time, but the pattern repeated with impossible precision. Mathematically perfect intervals. Never varying. And then, as quickly as it began, the signal stopped. No warning. No fade. Just silence. For days, NASA said nothing. Then, a single statement appeared on their website. We are aware of anomalous data involving Interstellar Object 3 I/Atlas. Further analysis is ongoing. But by then, the damage was done. Because while NASA's message was calm, the internal chatter told a different story. Leaked memos described frantic attempts to decode the signal. Some claimed it was simply random hydrogen noise. Others whispered that it was a transmission, a test, a message, or perhaps a beacon. Meanwhile, China released a second set of images. And these were worse or better, depending on how you looked at it. The photos showed 3 I/Atlas up close enough to see structure beneath the surface. Not just lines, but panels. Sections of material that looked smooth, metallic, and uniform. Light bent oddly around one side of the object, as though space itself was distorted. Gravitational lensing, they said. But it didn't match the physics. Something inside 3 I/Atlas was bending light the way a black hole would, but it wasn't nearly massive enough to do that naturally. It was controlling the distortion. Some kind of field. Some kind of technology that Earth could only dream of understanding. By now, the story had become impossible to contain. The media wanted answers. NASA gave none. China went silent. And in the background, something extraordinary began to happen. 3 I/Atlas changed course. Its trajectory, once predictable, began to shift. Slightly at first, a few degrees over several days, but unmistakably deliberate. It was no longer following a simple gravitational arc. It was turning toward Earth. Panic swept through observatories worldwide. No one could explain it. The velocity was stable, the deceleration exact. If it continued on this path, it would pass near Earth's orbit within weeks. Not close enough to collide, but close enough to see. And perhaps close enough to see us. Inside NASA, a secret directive was issued. All communications regarding 3 I/Atlas were to be cleared through one channel only. Data was locked. Access revoked. Even senior scientists were shut out. Something had changed. Those who had seen the original Chinese images were being quietly reassigned. Those who spoke too loudly found their projects suspended. And still, the object came closer. When it reached the inner solar system, telescopes recorded a phenomenon never before observed. Instead of outgassing like a comet, it began to shimmer, as though covered in translucent film. The sunlight refracted around it, splitting into colors unseen in the natural spectrum. A halo formed, soft, iridescent, alive. And then the pulses returned. Not just at 1420 megahertz this time, but across multiple wavelengths, radio, infrared, ultraviolet. They formed a pattern that, when plotted visually, revealed an image. A spiral. 3 turns outward, 3 turns inward. Perfect symmetry. The same shape found in galaxies, hurricanes, and the DNA of every living thing on Earth. The message was clear. Whoever, or whatever, sent it knew us. NASA's silence broke 2 days later. In a late-night statement, they announced that the agency's director was stepping down effective immediately. The reason given, organizational realignment amid evolving research priorities. But inside the agency, everyone knew what that meant. The leadership hadn't just changed. It had been replaced. By whom or what group, no one outside the uppermost circle could say. Even the new director's name was kept quiet for 48 hours. And when it was finally released, researchers noticed something chilling. The new appointee had no background in astronomy, physics, or engineering. He had spent his career in classified intelligence operations. Around the same time, Amateur astronomers began reporting strange anomalies in the night sky. Small fluctuations in brightness. Areas where stars seemed to dim for seconds, then return to normal. Almost like something massive was passing between them. Invisible, silent, cloaked. Many dismissed it as coincidence. Others believed 3I/Atlas was not alone, that it had arrived with something else. Something smaller. Something already here. The object finally reached its closest point to Earth, about 30 million kilometers away, close enough that the most powerful telescopes could resolve its full shape. What they saw defied every explanation. The metallic lattice was clearer than ever, intricate, symmetrical, and impossibly complex. It wasn't eroded, wasn't ancient-looking. It was perfect, untouched. Somewhere deep in that black geometry, faint lights pulsed again, synchronized like a heartbeat. Observers described it as mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. And then, after one final pulse, it faded. The light died. The signal ceased. The object began to drift outward again, as if its mission, whatever it was, had ended. In the following days, NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Chinese observatory all confirmed the same thing. 3I/Atlas was leaving. It had passed through the solar system, slowed down, changed course, and now it was accelerating away. Back into the darkness between stars. Back into the silence from which it came. And just like that, it was gone. No explosion. No debris. No warning. Only a question left hanging in the black. What was it? A relic of an ancient civilization? A probe left behind by travelers who crossed our galaxy before humanity learned to walk? Or something else entirely? Something alive, aware, and curious? No one knows. But everyone remembers the moment when we saw it, and for the first time in our species' history, the unknown looked back. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't friendly. It was simply present, as though it had been waiting for us to notice. As though it wanted to remind us that the universe is far older, far stranger, and far more alive than we dare imagine. Today, NASA refuses to comment on the photos. China remains silent, and the faint radio echoes that once pulsed through the void have faded completely. But deep in the static, astronomers still find fragments of that signal, faint harmonics that shouldn't be there, repeating every few weeks like a heartbeat echoing from the edge of time. Maybe it's just interference. Maybe it's a farewell. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the sound of something ancient still watching. Something that came to look at us once and decided we were worth remembering. For a moment, the universe held its breath. And somewhere out there in the cold silence between stars, it still is.